Hi, I'm Evan Atwood,
And I'm Daniel Sullivan.
and we're gonna talk at your earballs for a while. Dan, we just watched the new Ninja Turtles movie.
Yes, we saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the producing hands of Michael Bay. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, something we've been a fan of ever since childhood, like so many. And we went into this unsure.
Ninja
And
Turtles is the reason that I am a karate master.
Ninja Turtles is the reason I wear a hockey mask and prowl the streets.
I thought that was for other reasons, but it is good to know.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're going to start with the quick overview. Evan, 20 seconds. How do you feel?
I feel okay about the movie. There were definitely some highlights and some lowlights. Um, in particular, I think that my biggest worry was them getting the commercials or the actual characters wrong on the turtles. But I actually was really glad. That's more than 20 seconds, but I'm glad they didn't completely ruin the characters. Dan, 20 seconds on the clock. How did you feel about the Ninja Turtles movie?
I felt like I was less disappointed than I thought I was going to be. The movie is by no means good, but at the same time, I had a decent time watching it. There were times where the movie felt like it was so jazzed to be a Ninja Turtles movie that it was like a drunk person telling you a really great story, but assuming you knew a bunch of things already, so it left out details and weird moments.
Cool. That's probably 20 seconds. I was not keeping count.
Well, actually, yeah, I mean,
It's our podcast. We can keep going.
that was actually kind of how I felt about it, is that the movie had a lot of enthusiasm behind it,
Oh yeah.
and it did not. I feel like one of the things that people are always afraid of is that how Michael Bay ruins movies. That's an interesting thing to touch on. People say that Michael Bay ruins movies. He is not a great storyteller, but he's actually the films that he either produces or directs are quality cinema in their presentation. It's
Yeah,
one of those things.
he's a good director. He has a direction for the movie and he takes it there, come hell or high water. And I think that, credit where credit's due, he does a great job at that.
And I mean, this wasn't him directing; it was him producing. But I have this feeling it's a very, I have a feeling he was probably
Oh, yeah.
doing a heavy leaning on that. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is, like I was talking about, it's like a drunk friend telling you a story they were really jazzed about. The movie at times moved so strangely quickly with so much raw enthusiasm, like it was just so pumped that it was a Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh yeah.
It felt like it really was a friend telling you this story, and then at times would stop and go, "Oh, because did I tell you there was an ice cream truck? Yeah, there's an ice cream truck."
Yeah, no, it's particularly the first half of the movie, I felt exactly the same way. Looking at, from a logical standpoint, it seemed like they were trying to put too much exposition in weird ways, and almost like they didn't know how to explain certain aspects of the world that they were having the Ninja Turtles in, and leading up to how are the Ninja Turtles there? How did you make them? Because there's so many different origin stories, and I think this goes into the broader subject we wanted to cover about Ninja Turtles as a franchise. Um, there have been so many different origin stories and different variations on almost the same origin stories that I felt like the movie tried to make its own version of the origin story. Without too many spoilers or anything. I think one of the biggest things you can look at as far as the origin stories is the turtles are always turtles that become humanoid. However, there's been different variations on Splinter, and I think that that's a really interesting topic to cover really really quickly. At least is that in a lot of the versions, Splinter was a rat that became humanoid, just like the turtles. However, there are also versions of Splinter's origin where he is a human who then is mutated to become rat-like.
I.e., the cartoon series that most of us grew up with.
Exactly, and then in addition to that, the newest of, because there's been so many, the newest of the animated series that's running on Nickelodeon. that started in 2012, I believe. Um, and that was, again, Splinter is a human who then becomes rat like. And I prefer that one myself. I'm not sure if you have a preference yourself. I tend to prefer that because it has more of a context of how do the turtles become ninjas. If you have a human that already is trained and knows ninjutsu and is a practitioner of the martial arts, who then becomes rat like, of course, he can then train these turtles rather than a rat, either, from the original movie, mimicking the motions of his owner from when he was a rat. Like that seems a little bit, I mean, granted, it's Ninja Turtles, but it still seems a little bit far-fetched given the context of the movies.
One of the things too that we always have to keep track of, and this is coming from me when I'm a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles, but it's one of the dumbest fucking ideas ever. As far as like conceptually weird nonsense. And it's been a phenomenon that it kind of caught on as well as it did. And mind you, too.
I love that it did catch on.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the idea of the Ninja Turtles is when you say it out loud, it's one of those things where it's like, I think I've said something similar while very stoned.
Or just like waking up from a fever dream. It's like, oh, they're turtles, but they were ninjas. And they were in high school, maybe. They were young adults.
And there's a bad guy, and he's got blades, and he shreds.
I think I might have just been thinking of a Cuisinart.
And that's also one of the things, too, is that in this version of it, Tony Shalhoub is the voice of the Splinter, and the Splinter is a direct representation of many aspects of this film, which is he's a wide-awake nightmare. You are completely unsure of how to interpret him in this version.
Yeah.
And
it was a bit unnerving.
He's also incredibly scary.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a bizarre interpretation. And he is someone who is very stoic, somewhat malicious, and you kind of assume this is definitely someone who was human at one point, but no, it's a grown rat. And then on top of that, they take it one step further. He was not mimicking his master in this version. He read the how-to manual of ninjutsu.
Yeah. There are better ways to go about that, and we've seen that in different interpretations of the Ninja Turtles franchise. Having them learn it just from like a simple how-to manual with predominantly pictures was a bit awkward to me, at least. One of the things I also want to touch on as far as characters are concerned, earlier I said that I did appreciate that this movie got the characters right. And I really feel that they did. I mean, you have the character archetypes that they all represent, and they were definitely, I mean, they held true to that in this movie. And in particular, I wanted to discuss one of the biggest, it's not even a flaw, it's just a point. It's a point I want to talk about. That when you have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they are teenagers. And I feel like so many interpretations of the Turtles kind of place them as ageless, but mostly adult. Like even when I was a kid, even when I was a teenager, I never really like identified like, oh yeah, these guys are just like me. I didn't feel that connection to them.
This one actually did peg adolescence pretty well.
It did peg adolescence very well, but again, it was still more guys in their maybe mid to late 20s playing high schoolers in a movie. That kind of vibe that we've seen before.
And that was also one of the things too, as far as just good chemistry goes. And mind you, we're talking about things that the movie did right. There are so many things the movie did wrong, and I kind of want to reiterate that too. Is that I wanted to hate the movie more than I actually did. And mind you, by hate, that's actually a strong word. I was assuming a lot less because I tend to.
You assumed it was gonna be bad.
Well, and also I admittedly give movies a lot of slack. If I want to like it and all the ingredients are there, I'll like it.
Oh yeah.
And even some of the things that I don't like, I will say that it's like, oh no, believe me, it's not a good movie, but I'll still watch it. If I'm folding laundry and Green Lantern comes on, it's not a good film, but I'll certainly watch it.
Yeah, I mean, we can at least both agree Michelangelo was adorable.
Yes, he was adorable.
He was adorable, as always. He always should be.
And also, this was a movie where the first time ever I felt like they gave Leonardo the third dimension that he had been lacking in a lot of different versions. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
The hero archetype is one of those things where a huge burden falls on him, where there's usually an underdevelopment of character. And the big thing is fear of failure when you have people under your command. They actually introduced that at times in the movie as almost like his own self-indulgence, because there were moments where he actually acknowledged, I'm sorry I failed you, and things like that. And everyone kind of looked at him like, shut up.
It's fine, whatever.
And there were moments where the archetypes went over the top. There were moments when Donatello was just too nerdy. It was almost like,
Yeah, they gave him glasses.
which, if you want to do what you want
I
to do,
wear glasses, and I was offended.
one of the things that I thought was interesting, and we're going to be jumping around a little bit here, is that characters, like we were saying, Splinter was kind of terrifying. To that same token, the Ninja Turtles were also kind of terrifying.
Yeah, but I mean, in a real world context, like they they would have to be.
That was the interesting aspect of the real world context, is every time I kept looking at the Ninja Turtles, I was seeing what looked like I would find on someone's DeviantArt page. To me, it looked like...
I've seen a lot of those drawings, and I actually think a lot of them are maybe even a little bit better than the character designs they used.
I don't think the character designs were bad, and
no, neither do I.
And we'll touch on this more. We're definitely going to be doing an upcoming episode about reboots, because that's something we've been talking about a lot. But just to touch...
this is fresh enough in our mind. We're just going to do a whole episode about this.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was kind of fascinating, and I know you and I have talked about this a lot. With me and reboots, one of the things is that people are always complaining about, it's like, why are they rebooting this? Don't mess with the original. Honestly, and these are coming from a lot of things that I love so much, mess with the original. I would much rather see someone try something original and fail than just kind of do pure fan service, because that's one of the things that bothers me. And this was by no means pure fan service. There were moments of fan service. There was definitely moments of fan service. But
Dan is going wild-eyed and crazy.
There was the weird moments of fan service in this, and this was part of the confusion for this movie for me, is that the fan service came in weird intervals at strange places, which once again cuts back to this kind of feeling that this movie was just so jazzed that it was a Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh, yeah.
That it kind of like faded in and out. It was in its own world. It was a movie that was dead set on happening whether you were there or not.
Hey guys, I'm a Ninja Turtles movie. I want to show you guys how much of a Ninja Turtles movie I am.
It's exactly like Jerry O'Connell in Stand By Me. The fat kid showing up to tell the story, but he's out of breath going, oh, I got this great story I gotta tell you.
It's so great.
It was, I mean, this was the visual representation of watching fat Jerry O'Connell out of breath trying to tell us a story he was really into.
Oh, yeah. On the subject of different versions of the same story and rebooting, as we were saying earlier, there have been so many different interpretations and remakes and reboots of Ninja Turtles as a franchise in its entirety. I mean, we grew up with the 80s, 90s cartoon.
And then also we were introduced to the first movie.
First live action movie. And even like going into the sequels, Secret of the Ooze, and then the
Turtles in Time.
And
then also TMNT, the CG movie, which is actually part of that canon.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, it
has its own issues as well.
But still, it is officially part of that canon.
Yeah. No, and it's fine. And I mean, those movies gave us a really good, a good solid trilogy, especially for the time, using all practical effects with all the turtle suits and everything.
And those were magical effects. I mean, because you and I just recently rewatched the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, the first film, the 1990 film.
Almost like we were preparing.
I think we were just bored.
Yeah, no, that was... I was trying to seem like we were cool.
We're not.
Nope.
And one of the things that was interesting about that is that, first of all, those effects are just absolutely magical.
Oh, yeah.
But that movie on its own, and this is something I found kind of interesting, is that it felt like in that movie, there was nothing to fan service that much. Ninja Turtles was, I mean, it was apparent, it existed, the cartoon was around. But
and it was still new.
But...
relatively.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that to make this movie, there of course is a new generation watching the Nickelodeon cartoon, then also
Mhm.
the version before that, which is a version that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, you've been watching that one recently.
Yeah, and that spawned a movie that you can actually find on YouTube right now called Turtles Forever.
Unless you can't find it on YouTube, in which case we didn't say anything.
But yeah, it's called Turtles Forever, and it's a really awesome movie that takes place in the continuity of the version of the timeline that happened before the Nickelodeon show, which is
Oh yeah.
the version that I'm talking about, which is the one that came before the Nickelodeon show, is one that I love so much because there's a certain cynicism to it that
Hmm.
I really enjoy. And the Turtles Forever movie is a plot line that we've seen in a lot before in comic books and things like that, where the Shredder is actually going back to the first Turtles universe, which is called Turtles Prime.
Yeah.
And so what
And that
happened?
takes place in the original comic book.
The original
universe.
Eastman and Laird comic book. So it's all
Eastman and Laird. I love you guys.
you guys rock.
Just
And
because you listen to our show.
of course they listen to our show.
Have you heard our voices? They're soothing. Soothing.
But in that plot line, what happens is the turtles from that continuity wind up colliding with the turtles from the original 1980s cartoon continuity,
Yep.
and the comedy that's written there is absolutely gold.
You have to love the cynicism of the unbelievably dorky 80s 90s cartoon. Just like, hey man, cowabunga. And then like these other turtles going like, what are you guys talking about?
And also they acknowledge so many cool things, like even the animation style. There are moments when Raphael acknowledges that no streets in New York seem to go anywhere. They all seem to end in a T section.
Yep.
And also they acknowledge how
They acknowledge they have the initials of their first name on their belt buckles, and they're like, why would you do that?
And also the turtles go out in broad daylight, which is another thing that was absolutely ridiculous. They acknowledge
Yeah.
also that the 80s continuity of April is entirely useless and seems to get captured a lot, in which the turtles from that continuity respond, yeah, that's pretty much what we do is rescue her.
And on the subject of all April O'Neil is good for, the recent movie, I did think it was a little bit heavy on the, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Tell me what to do. And then screaming. That's pretty much all I noticed that she was doing.
Now, see, also, I think this was kind of interesting. Megan Fox was one of those things that I thought was actually kind of a good choice. And by good choice, could you have casted April better? Cast April better? Yes, you could have. Megan Fox playing April O'Neil, she's there for a purpose. She looks good, one thing to another. But she was not as bad as I was expecting.
No, I mean, I didn't think she was bad by any means, as far as like acting is concerned. But it did seem like she was in a position of just kind of confusion and yelling a lot.
Yeah.
Like more than anybody else in the movie, she was the epicenter of all like, wait, what's going on? And then like searching for exposition from other characters.
Now, what was interesting about that is like, look at that. That's exactly how someone would react in real life, which did not fit in with the wild set of circumstance that this movie was presenting to us.
Yeah, you kind of do have to,
We got-
have your characters have their own level of suspension of disbelief.
We got Christopher Nolan's April O'Neil.
Yes, a very set in a very realistic universe.
Even Will Arnett, who
Oh, yeah.
played Vern, the cameraman, was in the level of weirdness that the rest of the movie was in.
Yeah, I mean, the first time he saw one of the turtles, he's like, "Wait, you're a giant talking." Okay, and then he just rolled with it.
Yep. One of the things that was kind of interesting is that William Fichtner played Sax, the industrialist who was saving the city and wound up-
Careful about spoilers, Dan. I mean, are we worried about spoilers?
Originally on IMDb, Sax was listed as the Shredder.
Oh yeah, he's not.
I have no problem saying that he's working with the Shredder.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, the first big dramatic speech he gives is the quintessential "Don't worry, I'm a good guy, not secretly a bad guy" speech that we've all become accustomed to.
I give it all the time at Boy Scout meetings. I don't know why I go to Boy Scout meetings, but
I'm not a Boy Scout.
one of the things that I thought was so hilarious was that William Fichtner in this movie was just so stoked on being a villain.
Oh yeah.
He was kind of on the same page as the intensity of this movie, which was just
Mhm.
this kind of like, wahoo!
Yep.
And he was the one character who seemed like you could have dropped him in anywhere. Either they gave him a large enough paycheck, or Fichtner was just like totally stoked to be a villain in a Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. Nobody mailed in a performance. One of the things I will never fault this movie for is that nobody mailed in a performance. The filmmaking was not lazy.
Mm-mm.
It was so many enthusiastic ideas coming together.
I think it became a bit disjointed.
It became very
Yeah.
disjointed. And you know, even the design of the turtles, while you know, like I said, it seemed to be very much kind of like someone, you know, this was someone's interpretation.
Yeah. And
Like,
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. Like I was saying, like I love those interpretations. You were saying that it kind of reminded you of like seeing some like DeviantArt fan art of a realistic Ninja Turtle, and I remember seeing some of that a while back. I think when the movie first got announced as a possible future project,
mhm.
I know that on a lot of like art pages that I'd visit, there was all kinds of just an explosion of realistic interpretations of the Ninja Turtles, and I liked a lot of them. And it actually gave me, I mean, initially there's a lot of skepticism about the movies. When I started seeing kind of like some art like that coming out, I was like, you know what? I want to see it, whether it's good or bad. I want to see it. I want to see what contextually that's going to look like.
Oh yeah, and that was my feeling on it too. Is that you know, I was relatively certain that the movie was not going to be of great substance,
Hmm.
um, because you know it's the Ninja Turtles, which is an awesome arc, but at the same time, it's also dabbling into the wildly absurd.
Hmm.
And it was, you know, being produced by Michael Bay, which, you know, he knows how to make a quality film, but he kind of just assumes at times that story will just kind of fill itself in, or if people act hard enough, that story happens around that.
Yeah, there were points where it didn't, definitely. Really quick though, just to go on a bit of a tangent here, you were talking about the Ninja Turtles cartoon that you've been, kind of catching up on.
Hmm.
That was I think it was like, was it 5, 7 years ago?
Yeah,
Was that
God,
one?
and
That was the two-dimensional animated one. The most recent
there's a
of the
CG
two,
one.
it's the CG one, started in 2012, and I actually just got caught up on it today, in preparation
It's like
because
you knew
I'm
me.
prepared. I'm prepared. I. So are you. We're both prepared because we're cool.
Yeah.
Now we're cool.
Now we're cool.
This is how we prove we're cool. But I recently got caught up on that one, and getting caught up on it, I have to say, like, I've loved Ninja Turtles like my whole life, like we were saying. But this has been one of my favorite versions of the Ninja Turtles for some very specific reasons. And we're talking about like having the characters, being true to the characters and stuff. And this one very much is. And one of the things that I loved that they did visually was the turtles themselves are very different. They're different heights. They're different like builds.
I noticed that right away,
Yeah.
looking at Raphael, which they
Mhm.
made him the size of Raphael's biceps
Yeah.
spewed this idea of angst teen,
Uh,
you know, hit the gym kind of guy,
yep.
which was, and you know, Donatello was considerably scrawnier. Michelangelo had poor posture.
Yep.
They did that very well.
Are you talking about the movie or the CG cartoon we're
Oh, I was
talking
talking
about?
about the movie.
This is also true of the cartoon. The cartoon did this very, very well. I'm not talking about the movie right now. We're talking about the cartoon
Oh,
that started in
snap.
2012. But no, the point still stands, and I think that that's something very, 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 very important when you are differentiating the characters from each other. When we had the original 80s 90s cartoon, they were visually the same. I think they were like slightly different shades of green,
Well, one of the
but
things that
otherwise,
I noticed in
yeah.
that is I recently, God, I watched some review of the 90s cartoon. It might have been on Superhero Rewind. By the way, hey, Captain Logan, you're awesome. Superhero Rewind, a lot of fun.
Woohoo!
But if that was you. If not, you're still awesome. But one of the things in that is that consistently voice actors would kind of float into other characters. And
Yeah.
sometimes bandanas were kind of interchangeable. Yeah, it was the exact same.
Yeah, and having these characters in the newest CG series, having them be their own individual characters, I think really did allow the actual character archetypes that they're representing really flourish.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it does create a lot more depth to the story as well. Um, and so far, it's been one of my favorite interpretations of the series. You were talking about specifically the like Leonardo's fear of failure. They actually have an entire episode about that specifically, and it was beautiful. Um,
Yeah, I think that the character archetypes are interesting to go with. And one of the things that, we were looking at with this movie, going into this movie, and going into any reboot or comic book adaptation and things like that. And like I said, I want to go back to my point too, which is I'm a huge fan of not, I don't want to say venturing away, but take chances. I would much rather see chances taken and fail
mhm.
than just see. And this is also why, it's like, one of the things that I hate is when I see a fan film that is just basically a two-dimensional representation of what someone already wrote. And that is something that I've seen when you have too much fan service or when you don't try anything new. And I'd much rather see interpretation.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's interpretation comes from artistic vision.
And
There's a level of recreating something that already exists that you want to avoid when you're rebooting or creating a new property.
also I think too that the the passion for the source material, if you love it, that tends to come through.
Oh yeah.
That usually is something that you don't have to worry about. So then, your interpretation will have the love and care if you already
Yeah.
love and care for the characters.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's kind
And
of interesting.
if you're doing a fan film or any artistic representation of something you love, your love is going to shine through. You don't need to try and prove to other people that you love it. You're doing the thing, that's loving it enough.
Yeah, I would much rather see the story that you want to tell rather than see your encyclopedic knowledge of whatever the source material is.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that's kind of interesting is source material. This movie and source material. There were times, okay, actually, let me just put it this way. The source material with Ninja Turtles is a very interesting topic because they consistently change it, but if they tell a good Ninja Turtle story, that is really, I think, what matters.
Oh yeah.
This is not something. It's a little bit of its own beast. It's a little bit in a league of its own because it has been subject to so much change
Mhm.
that I think most of the viewers. It depends on what kind of viewer you are, but it seems like a lot of people, and myself included, I'm much more interested if you just tell a good Ninja Turtle story.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I'm not sure if absolutely everybody that listens to this knows. I mean, the original Ninja Turtles comics were dark.
And there was a lot of blood, which was black, because it
Oh
was
yeah,
black and
the
white.
black and white comic, very very dark, very
Film
very gritty.
noir narration,
Hmm.
which was another great inside joke in Turtles Forever. Seriously,
Yeah.
get on YouTube, watch Turtles
If you want to
Forever.
see at least 3 different interpretations of the Ninja Turtles in one movie, yeah, Turtles Forever.
But that was the thing that's interesting. This movie was, taking its own. It was creating new source material based with a loose idea,
Hmm.
and that was not the fault of the film. Actually, I found myself sitting there going, "It's like, all right, this is what you're going to tell me. Let's do it."
Yeah.
The fault of the film was a lack of focus. There was good attention to detail on the Ninja Turtles as characters,
Hmm.
but at the same time, there was this feeling of like someone telling a story and just starting to mention Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Leonardo as if we know what they're talking about already, which
Hmm.
is a safe assumption, but at the same time, you got to be a little bit careful. And I felt like there were moments where they were giving us exposition halfway through the film because they felt a little sheepish that they didn't give it to us before and that they may have made an assumption.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It was my problem with the movie was exposition. And yes, there's a lot to tell people, if you are trying to uh ingratiate people into the Ninja Turtles franchise that may not have been familiar with any of the pre-existing properties.
Are there still those people?
I don't know if that's possible. I would love to see exactly how small of a percentage there were of people that wandered into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie, going, "What's a Ninja Turtle? I don't know."
I want to know who that person was.
I want to meet them, and I will buy them a beverage because they deserve a good stiff drink after not knowing what they were getting into.
It would have been better if they walked into the theater not knowing the title of the movie, sitting down and they're like,
So what is this?
I'm involved in a movie.
Well, they may not know what the movie's about for a while because they did take quite a while, the first half of the movie, to actually show us the Ninja Turtles.
Which was fine, and that was one of the things too.
This a movie about a girl named April O'Neil who she wants to be a better journalist? Is that what this movie's about? She's gonna get the new scoop. Is she gonna get the big scoop and I don't know, report on it? Seems like a boring movie to me. Well, don't worry, dear listener. The Ninja Turtles will show up.
One of the things that was kind of interesting about that too is that then the Ninja Turtles were given superhuman strength, and there are moments that I'm not going to name specifically, but there are moments where their strengths exceeded what I thought possible. And what was funny is I actually was watching it, and in these exact moments, I was going, jumping the shark with a question mark, and then I threw it out the window and said, nope, it's fine.
No,
You're telling me this is reality. I'm okay with it.
I didn't even think about it until just now. We are recording this immediately after watching the movie. I didn't think about it until now, but yeah, they do show like examples of extraordinary physical prowess very early on, and then later things that should have been easier are infinitely more difficult. So it was a bit disproportionate on what it is exactly that they could do.
But that was the thing, and this is one of the things that's so fascinating about source material of Ninja Turtles, is that the concept itself is so absurd that you don't find yourself gravitating towards set rules.
No, and I think that's why Ninja Turtles has existed as this ever-evolving franchise that has stood the test of time.
Turtles in time that stood the test of turtle time. That's a thing.
And on that note, I'm Evan Atwood.
I'm Dan Sullivan.
And thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to check out Fandom Workshop on North Bay TV and also available online where applicable.
YouTube, check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/Fandom Workshop.
We also have Instagram and a Twitter.
Where we put pictures.
And words.
Respectively, on the Twitter and pictures on the Instagram.
Yes. I'm learning how both of those things work.
And also make sure and drop us a line at fandomworkshop@gmail.com. Let us know what you're a fan of, if you want to see something, or if you've got something that you just need to be seen. Show it to us and we'll judge it.
Yeah. I would love to look at everybody's work and give me ideas. I can only have so many.
All right, thanks for listening. Next week we're going to tackle Dungeness crabs. Don't find them in dungeons.
And we've looked.